Take a breath with me, would you? Place your hand right over your heart.
Feel that.
Yeah, that steady thump-thump.
Yeah.
That isn't just keeping your blood flowing. It's subtly influencing your brain and even painting the edges of your emotions without you even realizing it.
Right. And this isn't some, mystical concept.
No, not at all. It's biology. Solid biology.
Exactly. And in this deep dive, we're really on a mission to grasp the incredible multifaceted role of this organ.
What are we getting into?
We'll explore how your heart produces hormones that can maybe gently nudge your sense of trust.
Hormones from the heart. Okay.
Yeah, and how it sends electrical signals that might sharpen your memory, maybe even your eyesight.
Wow.
And how the very patterns of its beating are interwoven with the feeling of anxiety.
So by the end of our conversation, you listening will see your tireless heart in a completely new light.
That's the goal. And understand more about how to really care for it.
Okay, let's unpack this then. When we picture the heart, what usually comes to mind is, well, this incredibly reliable pump.
Right. The engine.
Yeah, it's the engine of our circulation, working nonstop from before we're born until, our very last moment. We know it's vital. We marvel at its stamina.
But our understanding often stops right there. At the basic mechanics.
Pretty much.
And what incredible mechanics they are. I mean, day in and day out, your heart, it's about the size of your fist.
Just your fist.
It beats over 100,000 times every single day.
100,000.
That constant rhythm propels blood through an astounding 60,000 miles of vessels, arteries, veins, the tiniest capillaries.
60,000 miles.
Delivering the oxygen and nutrients every cell needs and clearing away waste.
That's hard to even visualize.
Well, think about this. In just 24 hours, it circulates around 2,000 gallons of blood.
2,000 gallons.
To really picture that, it's more than a quarter of a standard gasoline tanker truck's capacity.
No way.
Yeah. The sheer physical work, the pressure it generates to push that volume against gravity through that whole intricate network, it's truly remarkable.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. Because thinking of the heart only as this powerful pump, however amazing that is, it really limits what we understand it can do.
Right. There's more to the story.
Consider this.
Yeah.
A heart taken out of the body can keep beating if it gets oxygen and nutrients.
That's wild, isn't it?
It is. That's because it has its own built-in electrical system, like a natural pacemaker sparking the contractions. It works independently of, moment-to-moment commands from the brain for its basic rhythm.
That self-sufficiency, that inherent ability to maintain its beat, it really hints that its role goes way beyond just reacting to the body's needs.
It suggests it's actively sending signals of its own, right?
Precisely. And its design is just, perfect for the job. 4 chambers, these precisely timed valves.
The structure itself is key.
Absolutely. The atria receive blood, the more muscular ventricles pump it out. And between these chambers and at the exits, you have valves that snap open and shut with incredible precision.
Making sure blood flows one way. That's the lub-dub sound, isn't it?
That's exactly it. The lub is the sound of the mitral and tricuspid valves closing as the ventricles start to contract, pushing blood out.
Yeah.
And the dub is the closing of the aortic and pulmonary valves as blood leaves the ventricles and the pressure drops, getting ready for the next fill.
It's easy to forget the sheer constant workload of the heart muscle itself, the myocardium.
Tireless.
No other muscle in our body works as continuously for as long without a real break. Other muscles get tired. They need rest.
But the heart just keeps going, adapting its speed and force billions of times over a lifetime to match what our body needs at that exact moment.
And all of this demands a constant supply of energy, delivered by its own plumbing, the coronary arteries.
Right. And this tireless pumping, obviously, is fundamental for staying alive.
Right.
Without it. Well, tissues would be starved of oxygen and nutrients within minutes.
Game over, basically.
Pretty much. But as you said, it makes you wonder, if the heart is this central, this powerful, and has these unique abilities, have we been missing other profound ways it influences our bodies, beyond just circulating blood?
Exactly my question. This relentless engine is clearly doing more than just moving blood around, even though that's a massive job in itself.
There are other signals.
Its rhythmic activity, the electrical signals it produces, the pressure waves it sends out, even just its physical presence.
Yeah.
These are all generating subtle influences.
Influences that science is only now really beginning to understand fully.
So let's dive into these signals. How does our heartbeat actually shape our reality?
Okay, so what's fascinating here is how the very rhythm of your heartbeat, like from one moment to the next, can subtly change what you notice, what you hear,
Hmm.
maybe even what you remember.
Oh,
This happens through what are called heartbeat-evoked responses, or HERS.
hers. Okay.
These aren't just the brain passively registering the heart beating, they're active neurological responses to the electrical signals generated with each pump.
So it's like a conversation.
Think of it exactly like that, a constant dialogue where the brain adjusts its processing based on the signals it receives from the heart.
Okay, so how does this constant heart-brain chat actually affect how we experience the world? Break that down.
Well, remember the two main phases of the heart's cycle. Systole,
Contraction, forceful push.
right, pushes blood out, and diastole,
There's relaxation.
refilling. Exactly. It turns out our awareness of the world subtly shifts in time with these phases. During systole, that moment of peak pressure,
Yeah.
the brain tends to dampen its processing of what's happening around us, kind of turns down the volume on the outside world.
Why would it do that? Seems counterintuitive when the heart's working hardest.
Well, think about the baroreceptors, those pressure sensors in your arteries.
Okay.
During systole, that strong pressure wave activates them, and they send signals up to the brain, specifically to areas that can inhibit other activity. The thinking is, this might be a way for the brain to handle information overload, to prioritize the critical internal event, the heart pumping, and maybe filter out less important external signals.
Almost like noise cancellation for the body's internal processes.
Sort of, yeah. It might even actively cancel out external signals that aren't providing new, essential information at that precise moment.
That makes a strange kind of sense, actually. So what happens during diastole, when the heart relaxes?
During diastole, the pressure's lower, that strong systolic signal is absent, and the brain seems to become more open, more receptive to external information.
Like the window opens wider.
That's a good way to put it. You might actually be slightly more likely to notice, say, a faint visual flicker during diastole compared to systole.
That's incredible. So our perception isn't this steady stream. It's literally ebbing and flowing with our heartbeat.
Pretty much.
Wow.
And the strength of these heartbeat-evoked responses, how strongly our brain reacts to the heartbeat signal, that's important too.
How so?
Well, studies have shown a link between stronger HRs and better cognitive function, especially in visual tasks.
So a stronger brain response to the heartbeat means?
People whose brains show a more pronounced response have demonstrated a greater ability to pick out very faint visual details, like subtle lines.
And memory. You mentioned memory, too.
Memory is also affected, yeah. It seems things we encounter during systole are more likely to be forgotten later,
Really?
suggesting that our brain isn't encoding those moments as effectively. The record button might be slightly less effective during that systolic phase.
But what about intense emotions, like fear? Does the heart's rhythm still modulate our perception in the same way then? Does fear override this?
Ah, that's a crucial point. Fear seems to be an exception, or at least it changes the pattern.
How?
Normally, systole involves dampening external input, right?
Right.
But research indicates that when we're feeling fear, activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear center, actually increases during systole.
So it does the opposite when we're scared.
It suggests that when we sense a threat, our brain prioritizes processing those potential danger cues, even when the heart is contracting and typically suppressing other external information. Survival instinct kicking in, maybe?
Okay, so let me try and recap this bit. How we perceive reality isn't just a straightforward brain thing.
Not entirely.
It's being actively and subtly shaped, moment by moment, by the fundamental rhythm of our heart. Whether we notice subtle details or even remember something clearly might depend on whether our heart was squeezing or relaxing at that precise instant.
That's a good summary.
Now, if the heart's rhythm influences something as basic as perception, what about our deeper emotions? We tend to think of the brain as the sole source of those feelings.
And while the brain obviously plays a central, huge role, the idea that it's the only source, that's being challenged.
How so?
Emerging science shows us the heart is an active participant in our emotional lives. It even acts as a source of chemical signals.
Chemical signals, you mean like hormones?
Exactly. Your heart actually functions as an endocrine gland. It produces and releases hormones directly into your bloodstream.
Which then travel up to the brain.
Precisely. And they can influence how you feel.
An endocrine gland.
Yeah.
The heart makes hormones. That's genuinely surprising to me. Tell me more about that.
Well, one of the key hormones produced by the heart's upper chambers, the atria, is called atrial natriuretic peptide. ANP.
ANP.
Okay.
What does it do?
Its main job is to regulate blood pressure and fluid balance. It acts on the kidneys, blood vessels. Basically, when the atria sense increased pressure, like too much fluid volume,
Yeah.
they release ANP to help bring things back into balance, lower the pressure.
So it's part of the body's internal regulation system.
Absolutely. And the fact that the heart synthesizes such a powerful regulatory hormone really highlights its biochemical sophistication. It's not just a pump, it's a sophisticated chemical factory in its own right.
Okay, so ANP is one hormone it makes directly. But I think I remember reading something. Its activity is also linked to other neurochemicals that affect our feelings, like oxytocin and dopamine.
You're right. While the heart doesn't directly manufacture oxytocin, the love hormone, or bonding hormone, or dopamine, which is key for reward and motivation,
Right.
its activity, its rhythm, seems to be connected to their levels and how effectively they work in the brain.
How does that connection work?
It's complex, but for example, a calm, steady heart rhythm might create a sort of neurochemical environment in the brain that makes it easier to feel trust, maybe facilitating oxytocin's effects,
Or
or enhance motivation, perhaps by influencing dopamine pathways. The heart state seems to influence the brain's chemical landscape.
this really shifts our understanding of emotions, doesn't it? Away from just a one-way street, brain telling the body what to feel.
Definitely. It sounds much more like a constant two-way conversation, a dynamic loop.
Yeah, a loop.
The heart isn't just passively reacting to emotions dictated by the brain, it's actively contributing to how we feel through both chemical signals like ANP and electrical signals.
And how do those electrical signals get back up to the brain?
A major pathway for this heart-to-brain communication is through afferent nerves.
Afferent means going toward the brain, right?
Exactly. Think of them as information highways carrying signals towards the central nervous system. The vagus nerve is a really key player here.
The vagus nerve. I've heard of that.
It's constantly sending updates about the heart's rate, its variability, how much the time between beats changes, and pressure levels, all up to the brain. A continuous status report.
And this constant stream of data from the heart, the brain doesn't just ignore it, right?
Yeah.
It actually influences those brain centers that process our emotions.
Absolutely. It feeds directly into them. Brain regions like the amygdala.
A fear center.
Crucial for processing fear, yes. And the prefrontal cortex.
Decision-making, emotional control, social stuff.
Exactly. Both receive and process these signals coming from the heart, often via the vagus nerve. And the pattern of heart activity matters, meaning a steady, calm rhythm versus a rapid, erratic one can actually change the activity levels in these brain regions. A calm heart signal might help soothe fear responses in the amygdala or support better emotional control via the prefrontal cortex.
Okay, so the heart is clearly a major player in our emotional lives. It's sending both hormonal signals and neural signals up to the brain. This makes me think about anxiety again. We often feel our heart racing when we're anxious. The common understanding is that's just our brain telling our heart to speed up because of the anxiety.
The standard top-down view, yeah.
But could there be more to it? Could the racing heart itself be contributing to those anxious feelings, feeding back into them?
That's a really insightful question, and it gets right to the core of some fascinating recent research. While we commonly think of that racing heart as just a symptom of brain-driven anxiety, there's growing evidence suggesting that the racing heart itself can actually contribute to or even amplify feelings of anxiety.
Wow.
It really challenges that traditional top-down model, suggests more of a reciprocal relationship.
The heart itself driving anxiety.
Yeah.
That sounds surprising. How would that work? Is there evidence for that?
Well, consider some interesting studies, particularly in mice, using optogenetics, basically using light to control specific cells.
Okay.
Researchers were able to artificially control the heart rates of these mice without directly messing with the brain regions usually associated with anxiety.
So they just sped up the heart directly.
Exactly. And what they found was that when they artificially increased the heart rate, especially in situations that might be considered a bit risky for a mouse.
Like an open space?
Something like that, yeah. The mice showed more anxious behaviors, they were more hesitant, more avoidant.
Just because their heart was beating faster.
Yeah.
Even without a direct brain trigger for anxiety.
That's what the study suggested. It was as if the elevated heart rate itself acted as an anxiety amplifier. The physical sensation was feeding back to influence the brain's emotional processing.
Wow, so the physical sensation in the body was actually influencing how they felt emotionally, or at least how they behaved. That's a significant perspective shift.
It really is.
What does this mean for conditions like panic disorder, where a racing heart is such a common and distressing symptom?
Well, it suggests that interventions focused on regulating the heart rate could be really valuable.
Like what?
Things like conscious breathing exercises designed to slow the heart down, or techniques from biofeedback that help promote a more stable, less erratic heart rhythm. These could be important tools.
So working alongside things like cognitive behavioral therapy.
Exactly. Working alongside therapies that address thought patterns. Addressing the body's physiological response directly might be just as important as addressing the mind's interpretation of events. It's treating the whole loop.
This also makes me think about how aware we are of our internal bodily signals. That sense of interoception.
Interoception, yes. Crucial concept here.
Does that play a role? Being aware of your heart.
Absolutely. Interoception, our ability to sense our internal bodily states, including the beating of our heart, seems really important for emotional regulation.
How so?
People who have a better awareness of their heart signals, they can more accurately feel their own heartbeat, for instance, might be better equipped to understand and manage their emotional responses. They might recognize the physical shift earlier.
Can you train that? Improve your interoception?
Yes, you can. Practices like mindfulness meditation, where you deliberately pay attention to bodily sensations.
Like focusing on the breath or the heartbeat itself.
Exactly. And biofeedback techniques, where you get real-time feedback on your heart rate or rhythm. These can actually help us train this awareness.
And potentially learn to influence it.
Potentially, yes. Become more attuned to how your heart rhythm changes in different emotional states, and perhaps learn strategies to gently influence it towards a calmer pattern, which could help with anxiety regulation.
And is there a specific part of the brain processing these heart signals for emotion?
Yes. Research, including that mouse study we mentioned, has pointed to the posterior insular cortex.
The insula. Okay.
It seems to be a key brain region involved in interpreting the emotional significance of signals coming from the heart. When they temporarily shut down that area in the mice,
Yeah.
the anxiety-inducing effect of the rapid heartbeat disappeared.
Wow. So that area was crucial for translating the fast heartbeat into anxious behavior.
It certainly seems to play a critical role in that interpretation process.
Okay, so understanding that our heart's physical state can directly influence our feelings of anxiety opens up some really interesting possibilities for taking care of our emotional well-being. Now, let's zoom out a bit. Bigger picture. How do our daily lives, the stresses and joys we experience, impact this whole intricate heart-mind emotion system?
Oh, the connection between our inner world and our daily experiences is incredibly strong and often quite direct when it comes to the heart.
Especially stress, I imagine.
Chronic stress,
Yeah.
absolutely. That ongoing release of hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, it has a direct physical impact on our cardiovascular system.
No.
It can lead to higher blood pressure, it promotes inflammation throughout the body, including in the blood vessels, and it contributes to the development of atherosclerosis, that hardening and narrowing of the arteries.
Which increases risk for?
Significantly increases the risk of heart attack and stroke. We even see these patterns in when cardiac events are more likely to occur,
Like when?
often linked to times of increased societal or personal stress. There's the classic higher incidence on Monday mornings,
Back to work stress.
possibly, and also spikes sometimes seen during intense periods like the holiday season. It's a stark reminder of how our daily pressures can have such a direct negative effect.
Okay, that's the downside. But what about the positive side? Joy, connection. Do those help?
They really do. Joy, positive emotions, strong social connections. They have real protective and even healing effects on the cardiovascular system.
Like what? Give me an example.
Laughter is a great one. Genuine laughter triggers the release of endorphins, it reduces stress hormones, and it actually causes the endothelium, the inner lining of our blood vessels, to relax and widen.
So it improves blood flow.
Exactly. Better blood flow, less stress on the system. And more broadly, feelings of happiness, contentment, having strong social ties.
Mhm.
These are linked to lower levels of inflammation and better overall blood vessel function.
So feeling good is literally good for your heart vessels.
It appears so. Even something like having a pet has been associated with cardiovascular benefits.
Really? How?
Likely due to a combination of factors: reduced stress from companionship, maybe increased physical activity from walking a dog, that kind of thing. Lower blood pressure is often cited.
So the choices we make every single day, they really are critical. They're either supporting or undermining our heart health. Not just the physical pumping, but also these subtle influences we've been exploring.
That sums it up perfectly.
What are some key things we can actively do then to support this whole system, the practical takeaways?
Okay, number one has to be regular physical activity. It's absolutely essential.
Why specifically for the heart?
It strengthens the heart muscle itself, makes it more efficient, it improves circulation throughout the body, helps regulate blood pressure, and aids in managing weight and cholesterol levels, all major factors in heart health.
How much are we talking?
The general guidelines, like from the American Heart Association, recommend at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity per week.
Like brisk walking, cycling.
Right, or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity activity, like running or swimming laps, or a combination.
Okay. Activity. What else?
Diet, of course. Eating a balanced, heart-healthy diet. That means rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, healthy fats.
Like fish, nuts, olive oil.
Exactly. And crucially, limiting the unhealthy stuff. Saturated and trans fats, excess sodium, and added sugars.
Are there specific diets known to be good?
Yeah, diets like Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet, dietary approaches to stop hypertension, are consistently shown to be beneficial for heart health. They emphasize those whole, unprocessed foods.
Makes sense. Activity, diet. What about the stress factor we talked about?
Hugely important. Given the significant impact of chronic stress, incorporating effective stress management techniques into our daily lives is vital. It's not optional, really.
So finding what works for you.
Yes. Whether it's mindfulness practices, meditation, yoga, spending regular time in nature, engaging in hobbies you genuinely enjoy. Finding healthy ways to cope with and reduce stress is essential for cardiovascular well-being.
So it really sounds like taking care of our emotional well-being isn't just, a separate nice to have. It's fundamentally connected to taking care of our physical heart health.
They are absolutely intertwined. Research shows our emotional vitality, feeling positive, engaged, connected, has been directly linked to a lower risk of developing coronary heart disease.
So the choices we make, the habits we cultivate, they constantly shape our heart's ability not just to pump blood effectively, but also to carry out these vital, more subtle functions involving hormones, perception, emotional signaling.
You got it. Our lifestyle is either fueling those powers or, frankly, fighting against them.
This has been a truly fascinating deep dive,
Mm.
really moving beyond that simple picture of the heart as just a mechanical pump.
It really is so much more. Your heart is an intricate, intelligent system, deeply connected to your mind, your emotions, and how you experience the world around you.
A central hub for well-being.
That's a great way to put it, a central hub.
And the empowering part of understanding this connection, I think, is that it gives us agency, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
By taking a more comprehensive, sort of holistic approach to caring for our hearts, we can foster not just better physical health, but also greater emotional resilience, maybe even sharper mental clarity.
It all connects. So the takeaway for you listening, as you go through your day, maybe try to be a little more aware of your body's signals. Notice your heart.
Pay attention.
Actively work to manage stress in healthy ways. Seek out those things, those people, those activities that bring you genuine joy.
And nourish your body.
Nourish your body with whole, healthy foods. Treat your heart with the comprehensive care it truly deserves, knowing all the amazing things it does.
A final thought then. Maybe just take a moment each day to consciously appreciate that rhythm inside you, not just as life support, but as a core part of who you are and how you experience everything.
Beautifully put.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.